I invite you now to take a deep breath and turn your attention consciously to this digital story, choosing to see the sunset. We stuck our toes in to find the water was still warm from a day's worth of baking in the sun. Soon, our shirts, shorts, and sundresses were stuffed in backpacks, and we were back in the water for the second time that day. The sunset had just started, and brilliant pinks filled the background as orange speckled clouds caught the light. We ran out far enough into the water that it became cold around our toes, but still warm at our knees. And we thanked each other. We thanked each other for driving the 10 hours to a beach in Florida. We thanked each other for donating the time and energy to take this break together. We thanked each other for companionship, support, company, and compassion. We thanked each other for the short study days and long study nights. We thanked each other for being there to support one another that year. The year that relationships ended, parents died, and medical school exams beat us senseless. Then we stopped, and we watched the sun in silence. Choosing to stop is always the hardest part. Having studied mindfulness and written a thesis on the topic, I can confidently say that choosing to stop is the most important part, too. Because we must. We absolutely must stop and choose to pay attention to where we are, to who we are. We must choose to cease hearing the noise of obligations and fears that drown out the waves. Because like the waves, the volume of obligations and fears ebbs and flows, but cannot be held back. The bustling of life cannot be stopped or contained. The best we can hope to do is build our little moat to manage it, and hope, pray, plead that it does not destroy the precious castle we have built for ourselves. But we can choose to stop listening and turn our attention consciously to the sun. The practice of mindfulness has Buddhist origins. It is derived from the concept of sati, which means to remember. Pulling from ancient Buddhist practices, mindfulness was first defined in Western scientific literature by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He defined it as having three components. First, one must stop and pay attention to the present moment. Second, one must consciously and purposefully keep their attention on the present moment. This excludes activities like watching TV that pulls one's attention to the present without requiring any conscious direction on the part of the viewer. And finally, one must cultivate an attitude of non-judgment to whatever they experience in that present moment. It is easy to form a judgment of and react to everything in our environment. We might find our physical position uncomfortable, our present anger with circumstances intolerable. Conversely, we might be incredibly pleased with any recent success in life or identify a present circumstance as extremely positive. Mindfulness asks us to drop all of these labels, to stop trying to frame things in order to react to them. Instead, all we need to do is accept the present moment exactly as it is. Jon Kabat-Zinn then created an 8-week mindfulness meditation course to help relieve the suffering of patients with chronic pain. His program, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, MBSR, is still readily taught and practiced today. Remarkably, after completing the MBSR course, patients with chronic pain report a 50% reduction in how much pain they experience, and this has been validated across different studies populations, and illnesses. By having people accept their experience in each moment, mindfulness asks them to stop struggling against their circumstances to relieve their own suffering. As such, mindfulness is not only found in yoga studios or Buddhist temples. It can be found anytime someone stops and consciously pays attention to their state of being in the present moment. And if we are wise enough to accept that present moment as it is, without judgment, there's peace. If we can accept our cold toes and warm faces, our turbulence and our serene depths, we find peace. To be clear, mindfulness is not a panacea. It cannot provide for individuals who lack psychological necessities, social connection, time off work, a sense of physical safety. However, it can help us surrender our expectations of what we want instead of what we truly need to be at peace. Each of us brought suffering to that beach. We brought anxiety that we were inadequate medical students. We brought fear that we would never find romantic partners. We brought anger with how our schedules seemed incapable of permitting rest. And while aspects of our lives may need to be adjusted to meet basic psychological necessities, our anxiety, fear, and anger were surrendered. We laid down these burdensome emotions, if only for a moment, to let the waves grind them to sand. And as our bodies relaxed and rocked with the waves, our smiles shone with the sun. Mindfulness has long been an interest of mine. I wrote a thesis on mindfulness programs in K-12 schools. These programs have become something of a hip new trend for schools to adopt to increase their students' social and emotional learning. But I found that we are losing track of what mindfulness is as these programs continue to propagate. For instance, some self-identified mindfulness programs ask students to describe a time they squabbled with a sibling. They are asked to label all the different emotions they felt at that time and how they might have reacted differently to the situation. While this is an excellent emotional processing activity for students, it does not meet even the first component of mindfulness, paying attention to the present moment. And it asks them to problem-solve solutions that might have been possible, skipping right over a preliminary step, accepting the effects of these emotional experiences exactly as they are. However, some programs have been successful in staying true to original mindfulness practices. One particularly curious practice asks students to attend fully to the experience of eating a raisin. They are asked to first look at the raisin, taking note of every crevice. Then they smell the raisin and see if this evokes any sort of salivation or repulsion. Then they set the raisin on their tongue and see how much flavor the raisin produces even before its skin is pierced. Finally, they are allowed to bite the raisin and again notice their immediate emotional reaction to the taste and are asked to sit with and accept the experience instead. Practices like these are also used to help individuals with weight loss by making them more conscious of how much they consume and helping notice their own reactions to delicious savory foods versus vegetables. Another common mindfulness practice is a walking meditation. Participants are asked to walk slowly around a park or similar environment and truly take note of all the stimuli that are present. Many may turn their attention to a single leaf to admire its veiny architecture. They may run their fingertips across the bark of an oak tree to experience and appreciate the coarse texture. They may lay in the grass with their eyes closed to feel the blades tickle their shins while the breeze tickles their eyelashes. These are easy experiences to accept. With practice, the hope is that participants may come to accept difficult experiences as well. All of these exercises and more can be considered mindfulness practices. Mindfulness can be found at any time. We do not need to sit on a meditation pillow to find mindfulness. We need only stop, ask ourselves what we see and hear and feel in the present moment, internally and externally, and surrender whatever we are resisting or hoping for in that moment. It was easy to stop when we were wrapped in the divine power and glory of a sunset. Why then do we forget that every moment offers a sunset if we choose to stop and see it? Golden rays streaked across the sky, bouncing across clouds and down to our glowing, pulsing hearts. As the air chilled, the water stayed warm. And even though the sun faded, the peace we found by stopping in that moment never will.